Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40k Universe. I am your host, Gersh1, and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about the Imperial Creed as we get into the Hierophant. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40k content every single day, and of course if you have any suggestions, just comment down below. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the Hierophant. The Imperial classification of a Hierophant is that of a zealot follower of the Emperor with an unwavering devotion to the faith. They are missionaries and priests whose sole purpose is to spread the word of the Emperor and bring righteous death to his foes. The cult of the Emperor exists throughout the Imperium. The glory of the Master of Mankind is found in the teachings of the Ministorum, the ancient secrets of the Machine God, and the million more faiths, all linked to the veneration of the blessed Emperor. Hierophants are those dedicated to the Imperial Creed, as priests and confessors, clerics and wise men, or as orators and demagogues, spreading his word and enforcing the tenets of the faith upon the teeming masses of humanity. As men of the Emperor, there is an aspect of the divine in all Hierophants, a spark of fever conviction that drives them against the darkness and keeps the spirits of the Imperium alive, even as it crumbles from without and within. With fire and swift justice, the Hierophant stands with 10,000 years of faith at his back, ready to strike down any who would oppose him and his God. He is defined above all else by his servitude and his relationship to the Emperor. This is his shield and his sword against the enemies of the Imperium, and where others succumb to doubt and fear, the Hierophant charges on, the words of the Emperor on his lips, and the unshakable truth in his heart. Faith in the Emperor binds the Imperium together, and gives it a purpose to move forward against the corruption and reckless aggression of Xeno-empires. The Hierophant embodies this faith and brings it to his service as an acolyte. The Emperor is worshipped in endless aspects across the galaxy, and a Hierophant might follow any of the many branches of the Imperial Creed. More than mere words and deeds, the Imperial Creed is a living, breathing thing with the power to inspire and fortify the human soul, as well as to protect it from the horrors of the universe. It is the duty of the Hierophant to look after the souls of those around him, to keep them pure and shield them from the corruption of the warp or the insidious lies of alien emissaries. They are often the only means of thwarting the fear and insanity that lies in wait for the acolytes among the uncaring stars. Against foes whose very existence is unconscionable to the human mind, only faith keeps them alive and gives them the endurance to continue in their sacred duty to the Emperor. To this end, a Hierophant is a beacon of light to those he fights alongside, and his is the word of the Emperor, which exists to give all men grace in their darkest hour. Much like the talents of a Psyker or a Tech Priest, there are foes to which the Hierophant is ideally suited, namely those that use the warp as a weapon, or creatures that wither in the Emperor's burning light. A Hierophant is a weapon of the Emperor in this way, and an anathema to all things from the great beyond. His conviction can sear the flesh of demon spawn, close rifts between the worlds, and cast down the witch, along with other equal glorious miracles. It is also an ample shield against the fear sown by Xeno races, which prey on primordial terror. A Hierophant can steal a man's soul against these threats, and replace petty thoughts of mortality with inspiration for his duty to the Emperor and the glory to service. In his role as guide and indoctrinator, the Hierophant often becomes a great orator, weaving his words and speeches into a web of influence over all around him. A skilled Hierophant can shift the mood of a crowd with a few well-chosen phrases, or turn his mind to murder. Years of training in the Ministorum or other agencies of the Imperial Creed grant him unique insight into the mind of mankind, and how the will of a mob might be directed by those that know how. Few Imperial citizens do not respond to his kind of persuasion, especially when coming from a member of the Adeptus Ministorum. Something deep within their souls stirs in the sounds of the Emperor's sermon, planted there through years of indoctrination and ecclesiarchal teachings. Hierophants are often invaluable when dealing with those of the ecclesiarchy, knowing the methods and means to communicate with them or manipulate them, as only one who has served among them can. Wherever the acolytes go, they find the shadow of the Ministorum is never far away, its priests and clerics woven into the fabric of the Imperium, holding it together with the faith of the Imperial Creed. The Hierophant can excel in these situations, a guided hand for his peers, just as he in turn is guided by the faith of the Emperor. But of course the worship of the Emperor comes in many forms, and each world reveres his might in a different way. Hierophants represent this diversity across the Imperium, from the primitive holy men of a feral world to the complex priesthoods of a prominent shrine world. As messengers of the word of the Emperor, a Hierophant exists to spread his faith, provided it is the Emperor and the Imperial Creed that motivates his teachings. The Ministorum is not concerned overly with the presence of local beliefs. Thus, a Hierophant can have his own complex interpretations of the Imperial Creed, woven into the ancient tenets of his world, where the Emperor is represented by his world's sun and stars, or its saints are great sea creatures or flaming volcanoes. He also brings the trappings of his world's religion with him, bearing insignias that he wore as a member of his local sect, or conducts rituals and rites sacred to those of his own people. Whereas a feral world Hierophant's belief in the Emperor might include natural phenomena and powerful beasts, that of hive-worlders or voidborn could translate into spirits of a ship or city. So ancient are these places that natives often attribute a soul to the hive or void ship, revering it as a god which watches over them, and carefully noting its many humps, creaks, and rumblings as signs of ascent or displeasure. When the imperial cult established itself in these worlds, these local superstitions are absorbed into the imperial creed, and the hand of the Emperor is now seen at work behind the spirits of the hive or void ship. As a result, a Hierophant from such a place might see the divine in any city or ship he enters, treating it as a sacred place and taking care not to anger its spirit. Though puzzling to those that have never lived on a hive or a space-going vessel, there is often common sense woven into these teachings, and they would often be wise to heed the word of a Hierophant when it comes to leaving a certain door alone or representing the color of a glowing rune. All these and more are supremely important to the Hierophant as signs of his faith, and for a Hierophant there is nothing more important than faith. And those were 40 facts on the Hierophant. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's really interesting, especially the last part, or the part where it talks about how different worlds have different interpretations, so they worship the Emperor in different ways. This is something that I talked about in our 40 facts on the Imperial Creed. Pretty much every single video that we talk about something that has to do with the Imperial Creed, this is underlined, that even though the Imperial Creed is led by the Duchess Ministorum, and they have the Book of Lorgar technically as the word, it doesn't necessarily mean that every single faith in the Emperor is the same, which is a really good reflection of what's going on in just regular culture. Like no one religion is exactly the same as everywhere else. Even when you look at something as big as the Catholic faith, Catholicism in Mexico compared to Catholicism in the US compared to Catholicism in Italy is completely different. Every single one is different, and it's the way that Catholicism does it is they assign saints, and each place has a saint, but really it's just the lore that had already existed there, and then it just kind of gets transferred over. That's what happened during the whole colonization of most of Central and South America. When the Spanish brought Christianity over, there was a lot of molding of already established religions or faiths into Christianity. Deeper south, I think even in Argentina, Chile, all those places, when they look at the indigenous people, there's a lot of customs that are seen as religious, that are seen as Christian, but in reality they're not. I mean, Christmas. Look at Christmas. Christmas was a pagan holiday, and the reason that we worship the birth of Jesus is because they were you know what, let's just make this one pagan holiday that everybody celebrates the most important holiday for our religion. And of course, the same can be said about the Emperor, because in the Emperor, or in the teachings of the Imperial Creed, they worship the ascension of the Emperor to the Golden Throne. It's like a big festival. It might be just like the Ascension or the feast. Every single world has a different name for it, but it's kind of like Christmas. Like Christmas is celebrated pretty much in every country. Each country has a little twist to it, but at the end of the day, like, it's an established holiday that gets changed depending on where you go. So I always like when GW does that, and I think that GW does something that's really, or they do this really well, but I think most sci-fi universes have give the reader or give the player the opportunity to mold their own information into it. So like if you look at Mass Effect, if you're looking at Mass Effect, you can become your own character. You can give your character a lore, and then the actual lore of Mass Effect is open to like you changing it, not to the extent of GW, because GW and 40k, they do a really good job. Everything is ambiguous, like nothing is for sure. So like you could take an imperial Imperial Guard regiment, make them zealots or make them look like zealots, and just give them like a bunch of heretical things, like guns from the Dark Eldar. You can give them like bodies from like different demons and whatnot, and it can still play within the lore of the Imperium because of the idea that, well, they're just worshiping the Emperor in a different way. If you actually even look at our 40 facts on the Prometheum cult, it's a cult on Vulcan's homeworld. What's Vulcan's homeworld? I'm drawing a blank right now. Is it Nocturne? I think it's Nocturne, but like they have their own worshiping. They had their own way of worshiping, and then the Emperor found Vulcan, and then like through time after the Horus Heresy, all those salamanders started to worship. They already worshipped the way that the old school Nocturnian people used to worship. So now the salamanders nowadays worship the Promethean cult, which is really just another interpretation of the Imperial Creed and the religion of the past, which I think is awesome. That's what I love about this whole topic of the Imperial Creed and all that good stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed my rambling. If you did, don't forget to share it with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media you guys use. It really helps out the channel when you do so. And of course, if you have any suggestions about other topics of Warhammer 40k, comment down below. And thanks for listening, guys. Don't forget we have a Patreon. We are able to post so many videos because of our patrons. So thank you, patrons. You guys are awesome. If you guys want to become patrons, the link is down in the description below. It's a simple $1 a month, but if you can't, simply by liking, commenting, and sharing, you're helping out the channel a lot. But with that said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.